Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Club. This is the place everyday real estate investors gather to share their best stories, biggest insights, and favorite tactics to grow a portfolio of cash-flowing properties in today's market. Here's your host, Gabe Petersen.
All right. We are back with another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. It is Friday as always, so we are bringing that Friday energy to you guys. And I have a little bit of an upgrade for the podcast equipment here. I've had this camera. It's like a DSLR Lumix, really nice camera. And I haven't been able to figure out how to get it to work with the podcast, but I did it this weekend because I saw this video and this guy had a solution. Totally saved it, but now the camera is like way super high. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, I might be looking at different directions. I'm gonna have to figure that out later. But it's a good day because we got Dustin Heiner with us on the show from Master Passive Income. Dustin is in a lot of asset classes. His bread and butter is the 1 to 3 unit, but he's in hotels, multifamily, you name it, he's got it. So it should be a good episode. Dustin, I'm excited to have you on. Thanks for hopping on the show.
What's up, Gabe? Hey, thank you so much for having me on the show. Yeah, I started investing back in 2006, just kept buying lots of properties and eventually had enough cash flow coming in. And now I like the term successfully unemployed because I was telling people I was retired. They said, well, what do you do with your life? I was 37 years old and started telling everybody I was successfully unemployed. And so now I just, go to the gym, hang out with the family, come on podcasts and talk to great people like you because I don't have to work a job. And I call it a job, right. A job, because you're living just over broke when you're working a job.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I told you before we got on here, we always like to start with stories. You've already kind of got into it. So you got retired at 37 or you went full time at 37, it sounds like. Why don't you go back to the beginning? How'd you get started in real estate? How long did it take you to retire and, or to get to the point where you could focus exclusively on it? And then, what are you doing today?
Yeah, totally. So I didn't start at all in real estate investing. My family wasn't rich at all. In fact, just like everybody, I was taught this plan. You go to school, you get good grades, and you take those good grades, and you hopefully go to a college or university and get in thousands and thousands of dollars into debt. You get a piece of paper called a degree, and then you go to companies and try to get a quote unquote career, and work 40 plus years of your life, retire at 65, 70 years old, and then retire and live on 40% of what you managed to save that entire time working that job. Well, I was doing that exact same thing. In fact, I get the most stable, secure job you can ever think of. I was living in California at the time. It was 2006, and California, working at a local county government doing technology. So California is not going away. Technology and government's definitely not going away.
Done.
It's a sit-down desk job, and so I was just doing that. But then I bought one rental property, and that one started making me money and passive income and cash flow every single month. And I thought, I need to be an investor. But
so
what happens?
Quick, what kind of brought you to buy that single rental? Like what was the inspiration for it?
I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I thought I need passive income, active income. I'm just selling my life away. And I need passive income. I need to make money without working. And so after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I went to one of those late night infomercials. These gurus from real estate said, hey, we're coming to your town, free 2-hour seminar. So I went to that. I was all excited, 2006. And I said, oh man, this is great. But then they said, it was horrible. It was all hype, all sales pitch. And they say, now run to the back. It's normally $1 million, but it's like, $10,000 today. So I did that. And so that's what got me into investing. And then I bought that first property. And then I knew I needed to be an investor, but life started getting in the way. So my wife and I started having kids. And still working at a desk job. But here's what really shoved me to be full force in real estate investing. So my wife had her 4th child, and I went on paternity leave. That's where the dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers and all the good stuff, bonds with the baby. Well, I go back to work after about 2 weeks. And in that same week, I go back to work. I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. And she says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? And this is Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Never a good sign.
No, never a good sign. And I started thinking, oh my goodness, I've seen plenty of movies. This is not a good sign.
This is the end.
And then I started thinking back a couple months before I went on paternity leave. There were some rumors or some rumbling going on that there could potentially be layoffs in the county. And I said, there's no way. My bosses know I do, or believe I do a great job. I've been working there. I have great seniority. So I shook it off. Then I get up and I start walking down the hallway to my boss's office. And this hallway isn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short. But every single step I took, it felt like the hallway got longer and longer and longer. And it felt like my feet became lead bricks because the weight of potentially losing my job was starting to crush down on me. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door is closed and I see his secretary there, super sweet, nice old lady. And she says, Dustin, would you please have a seat? And she's kind of sheepishly grinning at me, trying to console me with her eyes because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. So I go and I take a seat and I start thinking about my life. If I get laid off right now, that entire plan that I was taught, that we're all taught, I started thinking, did I just waste my life doing this? And we just had our fourth kid. If I don't make money to provide for my family, does that make me a failure as a father?
And,
Does that
and
make
how
me
old were you at this point? This was 37?
No. That was 30 to 31.
Okay.
30 to 31. It's right around there. I quit my job when I was 37. And so I'm sitting there, my hands are getting all clammy, my forehead's getting all sweaty because the nerves are just crushing down on me. Then the door to my boss's office opens up, and out walks a coworker of mine with a piece of paper in her hands. She's noticeably upset, noticeably distraught, not necessarily crying, but you could tell her world has been rocked. She passes by me, and my boss says, Dustin, would you please come in the office? So I get up and I go into his office and I get laid off. And remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off by the government, but I did. And this is the reason why I tell the story. So I take that layoff notice and I go back to my desk and I sit down at my desk and I realize two things sitting there in that chair. Number one, I need to get another job. I need to find a way to provide for my family. So I was really blessed, praise the Lord, to find another job in the same county. A different department wasn't having those budget issues. So check, did that. But sitting in that chair, the second thing that I realized, I need to make sure that this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure that nobody can take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I knew that every time I would reply, whenever you get to ask a question, we all get asked this question, what do you do? I would reply with my job. I work for the county doing IT. Well, whenever we answer with our job, we're projecting out to the world that we put our value on ourselves that coming from our job. I realize my value doesn't come from my job. My value comes from my God and from myself, from my family. So right then and there, I started telling everybody, I am an investor. That's what I am. And it may so happen 100% of my money comes from my job. That's now my part-time job. I'm a full-time investor. So fast forward the story. Started buying property after property after property, each one making me $250, $350, $400, $500. I still own them. I have 30 plus properties now, single family homes now, that eventually I got to 30 properties. I thought, why am I working here? So last part of the story, went to my new boss, great boss and all. I said, hey, boss, I'm laying you off. And he goes, what are you going to do? You know, we're joking. He knows I'm joking and laughing. And I said, I don't have to do anything. I own real estate that makes me money without working. So the last quick part of the story, I would walk to and from my car to my job, 1.5 miles every single day. I've done it 1,000 times because I'm too frugal to pay for parking up close. Well, I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never, ever need a job again, as opposed to that short walk that when I got laid off, that hallway got longer and longer, because I knew I would never need a job again. And so everybody listening, for you listening, I want you to realize that your boss will never pay you what you are worth. In fact, you are worth so much more than anybody could ever pay you. And this is how you'll know. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money that takes money out of the pocket. If they paid you what you were worth, they would go broke. So instead, what I suggest is finding a way to become successful and employed. That's where you make money outside of working for somebody else. What I did, single family homes, residential, 4 units and below, just kept buying property after property, each one making me money. I still own them now. Now I make tens and $20,000 and $30,000 a month from all of my real estate. So I'll pause the story because you probably got plenty of questions.
Yeah. No, I like how much detail you went into there because it really is. If you're working at W-2, you don't have freedom. It doesn't really matter how much you're making in that job. They can lay you off at any moment, and that kind of instability it's not healthy for anybody to have. And so being able to retire yourself with real estate, I love it when people tell stories about getting to that point. Just to illustrate it for the people listening, how long did it take you to go from buying that first rental to the point where you can walk into your boss's office and say, hey man, I'm firing you?
Yeah. So when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki had the plan of quitting his job in 10 years. And I said, check, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that exact same thing. But then life started getting away. So by the time I got laid off, that's when I really started scaling. And that's a key word for us as real estate investors. Actually, it's more business owners. We need to not be a mom and pop where we're doing all the work. In fact, if you're a mom and pop real estate investor buying single family homes, you get to about 4 or 5 doing it all yourself, and you're going to be pulling your hair out because it's just so much work and you're dealing with tenants and all that sort of stuff. But what you need to do is scale your business. So when I got into that new job, I realized that I needed to do something different. And the reason why was my property manager started stealing from me within 6 months. So I bought a property. I lived in California in 2006, couldn't buy a property in California. So I bought in Ohio, of all places, and out of state. And my property manager started stealing from me because I took what those quote unquote gurus told me and I implemented it. And my property manager started suing me because I didn't know what I was doing. But when I realized I have to make sure this works, I decided to build a business that then has the ability for me to scale and other people doing all the work for me. Give you a quick example of what that would be like. And this is actually, to quickly answer your question, it took me about 4.5 years, maybe 5 years, to eventually have enough properties where I have financial independence. I have so much money coming in. But
yeah, I want to pause on that point because it, everybody has this idea that it'll take them 10 years or something to get to the point where they're financially free and they can leave their job and do whatever they want and continue building their business. But it goes a lot quicker. And especially if you get into commercial real estate, you can literally, depending upon how much money you need to live, you could feasibly do it within 1 to 2 properties. It could take you maybe 2 years to get to that point. Again, that depends on how much money you actually need to live. But if you're looking for $5,000 to $10,000 in monthly cash flow, that can happen a lot faster than you think. And so that's why I love real estate. Your goal of achieving financial freedom is not as far off as you think it is. All you need to do is put your nose to the whetstone, whatever that phrase is.
Grindstone.
Yeah, get the work done. And you'll be able to get there pretty quickly. So sorry, I jumped in your story. Keep going.
Yeah, you're 100% right. In fact, so I've coached thousands of students now. I started when I quit my job. People were asking me, friends and family members, "How did you do this?" And so I was coaching them, and it was fun. I just enjoyed doing it. And then I realized I had plenty of free time. And then I was like, not necessarily wanting to give back, but I enjoyed helping other people. So fast forward, wrote a book called How to Quit Your Job to Rental Properties. So not creative title whatsoever, but I would give that out to people. I would just give it to people and say, hey, read this because it's going to help you answer all those beginner questions. And then you're going to have more specific questions that are applicable to you. And then we'll go through that. But anyways, going through and coaching so many people now, thousands of people, my students are now coaching people, and my students have quit their job faster than me, and their students are quitting their job faster than them, if that's their goal. Not everybody has a goal to quit their job, but I completely get it.
That's a good point, because everybody that comes on the show and myself, I'm always like, leave your job, but that's not
freedom. What it comes down to.
If you guys are out there and you love your job, and you just want real estate as a side gig, that is also a perfect answer. I've one of the guys that I had on the show, he has, I can't remember, it's something like 4,000 units under management, and he is still a police officer.
That's what he wants.
He loves his job. He still wants to go to work, but he's crushing it in real estate. And so real estate can just be your way to financial freedom, and you can still keep that job even if you love it. So sorry, had to make that point because I berate W-2s too often.
I like your job. I'm 100% against W-2. But so what I realized was that I needed to be able to scale a business because I had 1 or 2 properties managing myself, didn't work out very well. And then I realized I'm not the first person to ever do this. It has to have worked somehow. And then I approached it from a business mindset. I started a few businesses when I was younger, not enough to be able to be financially independent, but I said, let me approach it from a business mindset. And let me give you a quick example. So instead of my property manager stealing from me, I realized how to make sure that's done right. And so if you're going to start a business, what you're not going to do, let's say you're going to start a convenience store, a business, a convenience store, candy bars, soda machines. You're not going to sign a lease on a location, open the doors and set a box of candy bars in there on the ground. Now, you wouldn't do that. You go out of business in 2 seconds. What you would do, though, is you would build the business first. It's apartment complexes, commercial, single family home, whatever it is. you need to build a business first. And what it looks like is you get the gondolas, all those shelving units, all the candy bars go on, the countertops, cold storage, bank accounts, cash registers, employees, insurance, everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Once the business is built, that's when you buy the inventory. And then what I do, I look at every single piece of property I own. I have 30 plus single family homes. I have 750 apartment complex I'm general partner on. I have hotels I invest in, and every single piece of property is a piece of inventory in my business. And so what we need to do as real estate investors is stop thinking that we're investors. Now, we do invest money, which is 100% true. But what we need to be doing is focusing on becoming a business owner that owns inventory, because then you have the experts that are doing the work for you. And then once you are a business owner, you do not get into business to lose money. Give you a quick example. You don't go for appreciation when you're investing in real estate. You need to go to build income. I like the term becoming an income builder. And quick example of how that looks like. Let's
I've
say
been against people that, well, not against. It's just I don't like the idea of investing only for appreciation. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't want to buy a property that's not getting me cash flow. What's the point? I mean, if you're losing money, you're losing money.
you're losing. So in 2006, when I first started investing, I just wanted to quit my job. That's my sole focus, and so I was buying for cash flow. And then what I saw in 2008 when the crash happened, I saw so many real estate investors go bankrupt because that's what they were hoping for appreciation. They were speculating basically. I didn't. I made more money because I invested for cash flow, because sadly, people lost their homes in foreclosures. That turns them into renters. My rents went up because demand went up and up and up. But here's also, when you build a business, let's say you have a candy bar business. Let's say you can sell a candy bar and you knew all day, every day, you can sell it for $1 and you found a way to buy it for 50 cents. Well, you make 50 cents every single time. You'd think, let's do this. Let's buy as many as we can. But the great thing about real estate, what if you don't even have 50 cents? And it costs you 25 cents to borrow that 50 cents. Well, you're out of pocket 25 cents. You sell it for $1, you would make 25 cents every single time. But what you would not do, you would not buy a candy bar for $2 and only sell it for $1. You'd be losing money. That's just not the right way to do it. So if you focus to become a business owner that is building income, become an income builder, then you can scale your business. Then you're making money to feed your family. Then you have all the expenses taken care of. One quick last thing I'll say, because I know I want to have you jump in. I don't pay my taxes on any of my properties. I don't pay my insurance. I don't pay for property managers. I don't pay for my mortgage. I don't pay for any of that stuff. It's not like I have to get a job to pay for those. My tenants, all the rents that come in, that it goes into me and I pay all the bills, but I don't have to get a job to do that. One quick last thing. People say, Dustin, how do you afford a property manager? I said, I don't afford a property manager. I make sure I do not buy a property unless the property manager pay for mortgage, insurance, everything, and my profit. I make sure if I want to make $400 on this property, I make sure I make an offer that's going to help me make $400 on that property. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, and I like how your profits are underwritten into your acquisition. I've been starting to do that. Usually, generally when I was underwriting properties, I would go based on cap rate, and the cash flow. I wouldn't necessarily, I was always keeping an eye on it, but I didn't have a minimum number that I just baked into the formula. And now I'm starting to do that, and I like that a lot better because it focuses your attention on what you're actually going for, which is the cash flow.
Well, what I found, because I talked to lots and lots of people, investors that invest for wealth. They like, I want to accumulate wealth. I'm like, well, how much money do you have coming in every single month so that you can be financially independent? And a lot of them, like there was somebody who had like $3,000, and I said, hey, so are you financially independent? Or, do you have? No, I'm not. I'm like, oh my goodness. You have that much headache and you're not financially independent. But if you invest for income, you will always get wealth. If you invest wealth, you don't necessarily get income. If you invest for income, you will always get wealth.
Yeah. Requiring yourself to sell a property in order to access the wealth is not a solution. That is absolutely true.
And one quick last thing I'll say about the financial independence piece. So if you buy, and I asked my wife, I said, how much money do we need to bring in every single month so I can quit my job? I remember the number, $4,200, mortgage, food, insurance, all that sort of stuff. Well, it's just simple math. If I buy one property that makes me $500 a month in passive income, that's a year, $6,000. That's fantastic. Well, 10 properties at $500 a month is $5,000 a month in passive income. That is $60,000 a year. 20 properties is $10,000 a month, $120,000 a year. That's passive income. And I realized all I got to do is scale the business and buy more and more properties, making sure that it's inventory that my business runs on its own. Last thing I'll say on the point about financial freedom, I don't want to do more work. I didn't want to buy more properties to compound my work. What I do is I build a business so that I have the experts on the ground, like Zillow's not an expert, Redfin, Trulia, they're not experts. Who are the experts? The people that live there. In fact, I invest in Ohio, Texas, Arizona, Tennessee, and Indiana. All these 5 different states, I haven't even seen, I've got 30 plus properties I own, I've seen one of them. And so all of them, even the apartment complexes, I buy them, but I have the experts and I verify everybody. I have lots of experts. They're the ones that tell me. So if you build a business, invest for income, hire experts, you're going to do very well because they're going to make sure you don't buy the wrong property, but buy the right property. Because especially the property managers, they're going to manage them perpetually, hopefully for a very long time. They're not going to let you get into a bad property. They say, hey, I'm not going to manage that one. In fact, some people say, Dustin, I bought a property, did what all those gurus said, and I couldn't find a property manager because they said they would get shot there. I'm like, oh, you don't have an asset. You have a liability now. So how much better would it be if you say property manager, you build a business and you call up the property manager and say, hey, property manager, I'm looking to buy this property. Not I already bought this property. I'm looking to buy this property. How much will it rent for? What's the vacancy factor? Clientele, what do they like? And will you manage it? They give you the right information, the green light, then you go with it. If they say no, they're not going to manage it. You don't waste your time and money on that property.
And I want to highlight a little thing you said there. The property manager didn't want to manage the property because he didn't want to get shot there. That is one thing when I first got started, especially with self-storage facilities, they have a tendency for property damage, property crime. And so when I was first started, when I underwrote metros, the area that I'm buying the properties in, the only thing I would look at is the population growth, the economic growth, the percentage of the population that's employed, whether it's growing or shrinking. And those were the factors, because that if I could see that, that meant the metro is healthy and it's growing. And there's good signs, that I should be investing there. What I did not look at was property crime. And that is something that has bit me very hard in the past. And so what you said right there, reaching out to the property managers, also calling the police station, asking what areas, if you're looking at a certain zip code, say, hey man, how do you guys get called to this zip code often, or this specific property that you're buying? It really gets you a good indication whether you're going to be dealing with a lot of headaches in the area. If you're buying in an area that is prone to property crime, I'm telling you, man, it's not worth it. Do not go for that property. So
let me get, and you're 100% right. I love that idea of calling the police office. And so let me give you one other tip that people who've only been investing for a few years would not really realize. So I started investing back in 2006, and I checked the crime. I checked all that sort of stuff, started buying, and only people that have been around long enough will see this. Crime shifts, gravitation shifts. And so what I thought back in 2006, 2010, and 12 was a good area, it then started shifting into now what I bought is not the best area. I'm like, oh my goodness. And so even those trends too. And so trying to figure out what is the trend like as well. And what I like to do is making sure that all these routes are covered. And you hit a really fantastic idea, is asking the question. I asked my property manager, and this is coaching that I give to all my students. I asked my property manager, if you were to invest your own money right now in the city, where would it be? They're going to give you the goal. They're going to tell you exactly where it's going to be at, as opposed to just hoping that you find a good area.
Yeah. No, that's a great question, especially for property managers, because they're out there and they're boots on the ground. They're managing properties. They know where they want to get more units. If it's in zip code 88852 or whatever it is, they're going to be like, this is the one, invest here. I want more properties in that zip code. And I don't want them over here. So definitely follow their advice. All right, man. Hey, I love your story. I appreciate you going into so much depth. We have run down the clock, unfortunately. This is a short podcast, so I do have to move us on to the quick question round. Are you ready?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. It starts with, what does it start with? I do this every single week and I always forget. Starts with education. Could be any form. It could be a mentorship program you've been a part of, a conference you've gone to, a book you've read, movie you've seen, anything. I just need 2 recommendations, one for general life wisdom and then one for real estate.
Before we continue on with today's guest, I want to tell you guys about a community I'm launching on School to help investors like yourself grow your own portfolio. In this community, you'll get access to all the docs I use, all the systems I've built, everything I've used to grow my own portfolio, as well as instructions and guidance on how to get out there and find great deals, how to finance those deals, and then how to manage them for great returns. Since we're just launching it, the price will be set at a measly $20 per month, and whatever price you join at is the price you'll have for life. We will be increasing the price as the group grows, so if you're at all interested in growing your portfolio along other investors, now is the time to join. I will put the link somewhere in the bio or on our podcast website at therealestateinvestingclub.com, so if you are interested, head on over there. With that said, let's get back to the podcast.
Well, definitely general life wisdom is what the thing that I read every single day, as well as multiple days, and read it cover to cover many times, is the Bible. By far, the Bible covers everything in life for me, and it really is what also helped me to want to serve and help more people. So the Bible's one. Now, when it comes to financial independence, I wouldn't think like real estate investing is great, but I think before you get there, you even need to have financial understanding and education. I love The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clausen. Fantastic book, fictional story with principles that really help you to know what you're doing. So those are two things by far I would recommend.
I have a 2-year-old daughter, and when she's older, I'm going to give her that. But I read it a little bit too late. The concepts, I liked the book, but it was I had already understood everything. But I wish I had read that a little bit earlier. I really liked I like books that are story format, like The Alchemist, and they still have all that wisdom.
Well, the principles stick in your brain so much easier.
Yeah. So great recommendation. All right, moving us on. This is for your younger self. Let's go back to the Dustin who was still working that IT job back in California. Go to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
One piece of advice, and I would hope I would have learned it sooner. In fact, I have some students that are 19 and 20, 21 years old, and helping them to get financial independence. It's really the difference between active income and passive income. And active income is all we're ever taught. We're made to be a cog in a machine for other employee or companies as an employee to make them money. And when you realize you're selling your life away, that's really what you're doing. The most expensive commodity you'll ever spend, you can't make any more, earn any more, create any more, or anything like that, is time. And so if you realize sooner rather than later to go and after passive income, doesn't have to be real estate. Let's say you write a book or you become a musician or whatever, where you work one time, you get paid over and over again. I wish I would have learned that back when I was like 20. In fact, my daughter, so like I said, coach thousands of people now. I coached my daughter. I have 5 kids and she's the oldest. She's 16 now. She bought her first property 3 months ago and it's cash flowing $200-$300 a month in passive income. And she knows, I said, you need to make sure, like, if I'm going to help you, this is your commitment. You make sure you do not spend that money because it's a snowball. You'll make that money, save it with all your rest of money, and you'll buy your next property. And in 10 years, you're going to have hopefully 5-10 properties making you $5,000-$10,000 a month in passive income.
Nice, man. I love it. Getting started so early, I'm jealous of her. I got started in my my later 20s, and I wish I'd got started sooner. Like everybody on the podcast that comes on here, they always wish they got started sooner. So it's awesome to hear that your daughter's getting started so early. That moves us on to the next question. You've already mentioned there's a few metros that you really enjoy investing in. I'm gonna push you to whittle that down to a single metro that you are most excited about investing in today.
When you say metro, like the area, right?
Yeah, I mean it could be DFW. There's Dallas. There's Fort.
Oh, got it.
The major metroplex that you like to invest in.
So I invest for cash flow and residential 4 units and below. Now, if it's apartment complex, Tennessee has been fantastic. We have 2 big, large apartment complexes, one 325 units and one 350 units. And we bought those for like 50-60% of the market value because sellers are having issues. And so, but Tennessee's great. But then for single family home residential, honestly, Midwest, all over the Midwest is great. You just need to know what you're looking for, know how to find the right properties, we're investors, so we buy it for less than they're worth, making sure they're making money in passive income. But Midwest is fantastic right now.
Midwest, that's a big area. Get that to like one city.
Alabama's really good. Like Birmingham. Birmingham's really good right now. And then Toledo, Ohio. So I'll give you 2. Those are 2 places that I'm seeing my students do really well in.
Very nice. Very nice. All right, next question is about finding the deal. It all starts with getting in contact with the seller and penning that purchase agreement. So what is your favorite way to generate leads and find new deals?
Favorite way is, if you remember my story where I started telling everybody I'm an investor instead of having a full-time job. That's my full-time. No, that's my part-time job. I'm a full-time investor. That by far is the best way. Now, every single person for the last, 15 plus years have known me to be an investor. And so I get so many deals coming to me that I would never have known about because people know me. It's not that I know them, they know me as an investor. So I get deals all the time. I get wholesalers, other investors, title companies, I get everybody sending me properties and sending me deals. So I don't have to do all the work. I like doing as little work as possible. And I don't mind paying a wholesaler. I don't mind paying somebody like, $2,000 to $5,000 as long as I'm making money. They're making money. They did all the hard work.
Yeah. So relationships is
by far
is what you're saying there. And that is absolutely a great way to generate leads. And I always, when somebody asks me, how do I get started in real estate, and they don't have any experience, they don't have any money. And I know this isn't self-serving, but it's kind of, we're on a podcast. I always like saying, start a podcast. Interview-based podcasts are great ways to meet people that are in the industry that you're trying to get into. And then it shows, you're going to be posting this on YouTube, you're going to be posting it on Spotify and all these places. And it gives you authority. So it shows people what you're actually in your mind, in people's mind, they will label you as an investor. And so they know to bring things to you.
Totally
It doesn't
agree.
necessarily have to be a podcast. We're on a podcast. I like podcasting, so I'd like to suggest that. But it could just be, a YouTube channel. It could be anything. The point is just putting yourself out there, identifying yourself in people's minds as an investor, and people will start bringing you deals. It's crazy how it happens. All right, next question is about lessons learned. Not everything is roses in real estate. Many times, in fact, most of the time, something goes wrong. But that's when we get to learn our lessons. So what was a deal that went a little bit sideways for you? And then what was the lesson you pulled from it?
Well, the biggest one was when my property manager started stealing from me. That was the biggest one because I was trying to prove to myself that it worked. And so it wasn't working. So, and I already shared the biggest lesson or the outcome, or like how to fix this problem, is to build the business. That's really what it is. You build a business, and the other side of that is you make sure you're making income every single month. If you don't make income, you're going to be at a loss, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I will say, not unfortunately, but advice that most people don't like to hear is that money solves all problems in real estate. And so the quicker you can get to cash flow, the quicker your problems will start to disappear.
100% agree.
That's the truth of the matter there. All right. So that leads us to the very last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. This is a two-parter. Where can they find you? And then what can they expect when they reach out?
Oh, awesome. Actually, how about let's jump right to the expect. How about I give everybody a free course? My goal is to help 1 million people to invest in real estate. Do you mind if I share that?
Let's hear it.
Awesome. So I'm going to give you a free course showing you how to do everything that I've ever done in the business. If you text the word rental to 33777, text rental to 33777, or you can go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course. Free course, all one word. I'll show you how to find a property anywhere in the country, build the business, buy the properties with experts doing all the work for you, and scale your business, become financially independent. You can even find me on the Master Passive Income podcast or on YouTube channel. And my podcast, I started back in 2015, and it's just a solo show. Like 95% is solo show, me just teaching how to do this. So Master Passive Income, YouTube as well. But one other quick last thing is, if you find me on Instagram, I actually have a lot of fun, people DMing me and stuff, asking questions and stuff. The Dustin Heiner, THE Dustin Heiner, and I'll connect with you. But yeah, so if you just come with, I have so much free content that I just want to help you to invest. In fact, if you want my book, I'll give it to you for free. As many people as I help, the more money I make, the more money they make, and everybody wins. And so I really appreciate you having me on the show, Gabe.
Perfect, man. I love it. So if you guys want to reach out to Dustin, I will put those links in the show notes. All you got to do is click a little more in the description here. It'll pull down that full description in there. You can find his links. All right, man. That wraps it up. I appreciate you hopping on the show.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you, man. If there's everything I could do for you, let me know.
Absolutely. For everybody who's with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to me, Gabe, at therealestateinvestingclub.com. If you guys want to support the show, just leave us a review. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
All right, before I officially sign off, I have a quick announcement to make. If you're interested in becoming a passive investor in one of my deals, my own company, Kaizen Properties, is looking for capital partners for our upcoming projects. We invest in what are known as recession-resistant assets, mainly self-storage facilities, mobile home and RV parks, and industrial properties. If you're interested in investing and would like to learn a little bit more about my company, our investing criteria, and some of the previous projects we've done, go to the Real Estate Investing Club podcast at therealestateinvestingclub.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. Click on the Invest With Us button. That'll pop up the investor form. Fill that out, and we will reach back out to you as soon as we can. Or if you prefer a little bit more of a personal touch, you can reach out to me at gabe@therealestateinvestingclub.com. So really, that is it. Again, it was a pleasure hanging out with you guys during this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.